play me some Blood Omen. This is one of my most nostalgic games from my childhood. Learned a lot of English from this game. Play it every once in a while as an adult still, because I love it. I love the whole game series, but this first one, it's different from the rest. It's kind of a Legend of Zelda game style, like dungeons from an upward angle, you know, those kinds of games. The rest are more like puzzle platformers. As much as I love the story and the setting, not my type of game style.
There is a magical operation of maximum importance. The initiation of a new aeon. When it becomes necessary to utter a word, the whole planet must be bathed in blood.
Yeah, crusade against vampires. The heads of the crusade. Assassin. Keep calling for your paladin bodyguard, but he's nowhere to be seen. No. Tore the flesh off her bones. Santa Claus is in trouble. Getting goosebumps, man, on my forearms. On my hair is stupid. Such good shit.
For fulfilling the sacred mandate of the Southman, you are hereby damned. The pleasures of the flesh are no longer you have but one purpose, dear woman. You would serve us for eternity.
For eternity. Guardian of balance, murdered in cold blood. Without a balanced guardian, the pillars get corrupted. Well, it's not that simple, but still.
The tavern's closing. Best be on your way, stranger. What? A mug of ale for a weary traveller from distant Corhagen? I can reward you well, for I am of noble blood. I stay open for no man in these dark times. Things come with the night that no sane man would welcome. And so I left, cold of heart and soul, forced to the road and the long, bitter night.
This is what I mean. I gotta zoom out and zoom back in. And, I'm just a plain old Cain, a nobleman, mortal nobleman, just on my way, traveling from distant Corhagen. No mug of ale.
Assassin!
What? Assassins again? What's with all the assassins? Ah, shit. Ah.
End it! Now!
Why? Straight to hell. Arcane must have had something on his conscience.
Vain victors, suffering to the conquered. hunger for revenge. I didn't care if I was in heaven or hell. All I wanted was to kill my assassins. Sometimes you get what you wish for. Necromancer Mortanius offered me a chance for vengeance, and like a fool, I jumped at his offer without considering the cost. Nothing is free, not even revenge.
Yes. You will have the blood you hunger for.
Now the actual game begins.
I awoke to the pain of a new existence, in a dank room of darkness and decay.
I push a button, and I get my first spell.
The sanctuary spell enables me to travel to my crypt, where the soil of my grave provides me respite. I often resort to this when I am weak and need nourishment.
Yes, indeed. That's a good spell. If you ever need to bail out, goddamn grave digger. Ah, yes. It's one of those like vampire things I love about this game. I think I've seen it somewhere else later on, but originally I saw it here, where telepathically or like a stream of blood just flows right into you. It's a great idea for like a setting where vampires are very much like sorcerers and the like. They harness a lot of magic.
Reputed to have been ripped from the chest of the greatest vampire to have ever existed, Janos Audron, the heart of darkness restores vampiric unlife. Life is precious, Janos discovered, as it was torn, throbbing and bleeding from his own body.
They wind up changing the lore of Janos Audron quite a bit in the later games, but no matter. You'll find a lot of these poor, wretched souls who are like trapped in handcuffs, and and I won't drink her blood yet, because if you drink a mortal's blood indoors, they come back as wraiths, and you can no longer drink blood from them, but this kind of blue substance, this ectoplasm that heals your magic points, but not your blood, and you get a lot less of it than you do blood. So I'm gonna savor these folks as long as I possibly can.
This ancient vial bears with it a dark gift indeed, for with it my life force is increased.
Yes.
These ancient symbols of power contain raw magical energy that increases my own capacity to summon energy for the spawning of spells.
Spawning of spells. Like there's a health bar, and on the right side there's the magic power. You know, if I were to die and come back as undead, that's me. That's me right now. Every morning I walk to work.
Thank you.
Safe spot.
Within the walls of these chambers I could find respite, and if I so chose, resume my journey when my weariness abated.
I don't think this game is difficult enough, at least to someone who's played it multiple times, that I don't need to save in any other instance other than when I'm finished gaming for that day.
The world had changed to my eyes. I had not expected such cruelty from the light, for in the embrace of the sun I could find no comfort, only malice. This would change in time for the worse, along with other things. When rainfall comes, vampires are wise to find shelter from its acidic touch.
That's another thing. In this setting, vampires are very allergic to running water, and it's I mean, I like it that when rainfall comes, it's like acid and it burns them, and it's kind of like sunlight. It's another thing for vampires to remain in their dark tombs for, you know. But at the same time, it's kind of silly to go outside and just see raindrops coming and just puffs of smoke, just yeah. One of my old friends in art school drew this caricature of Cain where there's a Labrador or something next to it, just, you know, shaking its fur after getting wet, and there's like water sprinkling everywhere, and there's Cain next to him, just just suffering. It's very fitting. But yeah, it works, you know, as a game kind of device in later games, especially when you can learn the ability to swim in water, so, you know, you can keep the player off of certain locations by filling them with water and then giving them the ability to swim later, you know. Those old tricks. It's one of those things also where Soul Reaver, the second, or the, you know, continuation of this game, it has a lower age restriction than this one. I had a friend as a kid whose parents were paramount that he not play video games that are too harsh for him, you know, and he was like suffering because he really loved Soul Reaver, and I had this game.
Curious devices hurl bolts of whirling energy and eviscerate my human enemies by stripping ragged flesh from blood-stained bone.
Hell yeah, shurikens. Those are pretty much my favorite item in this game. Just your average projectile weapon, but they're homing, like homing missiles. And when they hit the enemy, they make just chunks of flesh just explode off of their bones. It's really grotesque, and it's kind of funny again, like you're a vampire Dracula and you have shurikens and but yeah, a friend of mine, he could play Soul Reaver, but his parents wouldn't allow him to play this, and so he was like suffering. He had to wait for like a year or two before they would allow him to play this. And I can understand it now, because in Soul Reaver, yeah, there's blood, but you're pretty much always killing monsters. And in this one, even though that game has a lot more of a nightmarish quality to it, at least in my opinion, it's a lot more grotesque in a lot of ways, and like horrible in that kind of scary kind of way. But this one has a lot more like you killing innocent people. You know, just people screaming, "Oh, help me, kind son!" You're like, no. So I can understand if a parent was concerned, you know. When we were kids, we didn't understand. It was all restrictions and rules and regulations and goddamn government to us. We didn't realize why the medicine tasted bad, you know. Another safe spot right here.
Hunger and weakness are no bar to vengeance's call. I would find my slayers and send them back whence I came.
There you are. Double whammy.
What trickery is this? death for this moment. My mind was empty save for one thought. I would kill. There is no greater relief than that from vengeance sated. With my assassins dead, my quest was over.
It's funny, every time I return here with the sanctuary spell that I got at the very start, when, I have to retreat from a hot situation or a tough situation, I return back here, these enemies are here, respawned, and he always says those same voice lines. It's like, I'll finally get
It's
vengeance.
not over, Cain. These fools were merely the instruments of your murder, not the cause. Look to their masters, look to the pillars, and gain way to the fortress of the mind.
Yes, indeed. Why would these assassins just kill plain old Cain the nobleman, who all of a sudden immediately gets an offer he can't refuse from a necromancer? I wonder who was behind me getting killed, but why? Why?
This was where the bloody deed of my murder took place.
I also love the fact that in this game everything is very like German inspired. It's little things like that this is just a generic medieval setting, but if every single town and places like that are named in very German ways, it immediately gives it some kind of flavor. I gotta say, these peasants are real badasses. Like this lady, she's just slap. The guy has a mace. She's just slap happy. All right, it's starting to turn into day because people are outside. Yeah, the change between day and night mostly has to do with whether there are people sleeping in their beds indoors, which means that you can just straight up drink blood from them, and if it's daytime, they're not in their beds and they're outside, it's good because then you can drink blood from them, and when they return back, respawn into this place, they're humans again with blood. If you feast from them when they're like in their beds, they come back as wraiths or the like, the whole ectoplasm thing instead of blood. So, I don't want that. Because it's always, because of the sanctuary spell, it's always good to leave sources of like actual blood close to the point where the game started.
The necromancer had offered me no warning as to what my resurrection would entail, and yet I must confess in my haste I had not sought one. Was his gift a curse? I would seek the pillars for an answer.
I like it that Cain is a very simple-minded and naive character, especially in the beginning, when he's an elder vampire in the later games in Soul Reaver series. He's, of course, like incredibly anything but naive. But here, I really like it that he's very kind of simple-minded about everything, and he's not simple-minded in this well-meaning way. Usually, when people are characters are naive, they're naive because they're well-meaning. Cain is anything but. He's like he's not only like bloodthirsty and cruel, he's also like a dickhead. Every once in a while he'll make comments that are basically just about how Ve Victus indeed. You you know your house words? Well, Kane sure knows his. Woe to the conquered. Or as he said in this game, suffering to the conquered. Translations are translations. Yes, indeed. There you see, there's a teleporter pad.
The pillars of Nosgoth. Even in life, few sights have moved me such as this. I marvel that such beauty should grace our dying world.
Kane's a cynic. Who cares? The world is dying anyway.
As daylight chases darkness, the vampire's power wanes.
Honestly, I think the difference in power between day and night is so minor that I don't think about it. I couldn't even tell you what the actual differences are.
Your madness has shattered our dreams and blinded you.
Keep your distance, or I'll send you back to hell, spirit.
There is nothing left of me to fear, vampire. I'm only a shadow of my former self, Ariel, the balance of the Circle of Nine. Even so, I can provide the answers you seek.
I seek only a cure.
There is no cure for death, only release. You must destroy the sorcery that is now poisoning Nosgoth. Only then will you realize peace. The Nine, the protectors of hope, were sworn to use their powers to preserve our world. Now these pillars have been corrupted by a traitor. My murder at the hands of this beast drove my love Naprapto mad. Now he spreads misery and pain among the Circle, crumbling the very foundation of Nosgoth. You must restore balance. You must right the pillars of Nosgoth.
I care not for the fate of this world.
Then for yourself, Cain. Beware the unspoken.
That's one of those lines that they kind of retconned later on. Beware the unspoken. I think it's a very cool and poetic line, but later on they made it literal by naming a character the unspoken.
Naprapto, with his blind act of vengeance, threatened to destroy all of Nosgoth. Each Circle member was bonded to the pillar he served. The pillars reflected the mental state of their servants, and as the minds of the Circle degenerated and descended farther into dementia, the pillars crumbled. To restore them, each member of the Circle had to die, and the artifact that served as their link to the pillar had to be returned. Only when all the pillars were restored did Ariel claim my curse would end. And so, my hunt for Naprapto began.
And this is basically the setup for the basic structure of the game. Here's, 9 pillars. Each one has a guardian. You need to kill every one of them. So you have a collection of bosses to go after.
The pillar of the mind. The pillar of dimension. The pillar of conflict. The pillar of nature. The pillar of balance. The pillar of energy. The pillar of time. The pillar of states. The pillar of death.
So, this Ariel, who was the guardian of the Pillar of Balance, was murdered in the intro opening cutscene, and one of the other guardians, the guardian of the Pillar of the Mind, was her lover, Napraptor, and her murder drove him mad. And because he's the guardian of the Pillar of the Mind, if he becomes mad, that spreads like a plague, and it's something that's pretty much turning all the rest of the guardians mad as well. So we need to take care of him first.
These beacons serve as landmarks during my flights in bat form. Once I have committed their locations to memory, I can always return.
You'll eventually learn a lot of different forms you can transform into, like a werewolf, mist, and a flock of bats, which is the first one. But the flock of bats is basically your fast travel ability.
In bat form, I can travel great distances with ease. From my vantage in the heavens, no region of Nosgoth is forbidden to me.
You just have to mark these those kind of obelisks. Feast. Let's see. There's the first dungeon of the game. The point of just about every dungeon is that they're built around you gaining some sort of new spell or item from them. Here it's going to be a spell of creating light. So this dungeon is going to be all about not having light and using the light spell to light your way. Oh, I'm late for work. I'm late for work. That would be quite the hell. I'm one of those people who stresses quite a bit about being late from anything. I always arrive, like half an hour too early at work or on a train platform or something. That would be a horrible existence of just walking in a circle, just thinking you're late, you're late, you're late. I've released you. Oh, damn. The pressure was too high. The stress level was too high. He burst. Ooh, almost missed that. Extended my health bar. The good thing is that most of those items always glow, so, you can't miss them unless you are just being kind of negligent, like I was.
While it is true that natural light weakens a vampire, magical light can have many uses indeed.
Yes, indeed. Oh, let's try it out. In dungeons like these, you can always feel quite free to just drink blood as much as you like, because you won't be returning to these places. Let's see. Okay. Doesn't seem to be anything here but the guy. But I'm sure the other one has a button. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Button pushed, door opened, and I ran out of the light spell. Thankfully that doesn't take a whole lot of magic points, and as long as your health is full, you regenerate magic points quite well. And as you can see, the game is quite lenient in the early stages of giving you stuff like more magic and stuff. Like, I don't really need the light spell here. You can see where you have the map, and when you're zoomed out this much and all the points of interest glow like that, The only thing you really need it for is to spot like spike traps and some enemies, like those spike balls are sometimes, you know, tricky. Like right now. Oh, it's following me. Now, just use it. Damn dungeon was created for it to be. Oh shit! For it to be used, and they're giving you ample supply of resources so that you're not like being punished for using it. Help me, kind sir. I am not kind, sir. There's definitely a discrepancy in this game between different items. Some are hella plentiful to find and others are very precious, and first time playing this you wouldn't know which would be which, you know? The Heart of Darkness items are very precious. I know that there exists a spirit forge where you can donate blood to get, you know, there's multiple spirit forges throughout the game where you can donate your own blood and exchange it for some items. The easiest one to discover is one that gives you those shurikens, and it's something I usually spam quite a bit because later on there's a point in the game where you'll be facing a lot of enemies that can poison you if they get to melee range and touch you, and I want to avoid that as much as possible, but that's later on in the game. But if you have those shurikens, if you have like maxed out like 99 shurikens, you can always, when you spot those creatures at the edges of the map, you can just shoot those shurikens at them and be kind of safe, because being poisoned is really sucks. It's like a death spiral where you get poisoned, and on top of that you get injured, and you're just weakening, just going down the drain, and it's miserable. But it's also miserable to just kind of travel between the Spirit Forge, getting the shurikens, and returning back to your home crypt to heal back up after donating blood. But it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it when it comes time. I won't go there as soon as it becomes available, because there's still such a long way to the spot where I desperately need them that I don't want to do it before I have to. Nachtholm. Ah, yes.
Night dawns, and with it, the vampire grows stronger.
Now I'm gonna get my werewolf power. This was my favorite when I was a kid, because I've always been really into vampires and werewolves. But it's also really good because when you're a werewolf, you basically, your abnormal movement is a lot quicker, and you can also leap and swipe with your hand, but you can't cast spells in your wolf form. So
My lupine form enables me to move like lightning and leap over obstacles barring my path, but the guise of the wolf brings with it its own kind of hunger and rage.
there's no hunger or rage having to do with being a werewolf. but it's the inability to inability to cast spells. That's really the kicker. And with the werewolf form, it's usually that dungeons are designed with the werewolf form in mind. They will purposefully place pits or streams of running water or oh shit. Come on now. In your way as obstacles, you know, so that you'll leap across them as a werewolf. But I think one of the main ways in which I use this form is just to, if there's spots where it's better to just run across enemies than fight them, you can do that very easily in the werewolf form. Of course, if you get boxed in by enemies, then there's nothing you can do even in werewolf form. You just have to deal with it. And also being in the werewolf form eats at your magic points the entire time, so... For example, this guy right here, he has a big fuck-off axe, but... Whoa. There's basically no way he can catch me. I'm a werewolf. So... They have like trouble catching me when I'm in my regular form. The door open. Teleporting away. And we're back. And right at the mouth of the cave entrance there were platforms that needed to be leapt on. And that's what I did. Let's see. Go here. Oh yeah, that's the cave where you can exchange blood for the shurikens. And yeah. I'm gonna go get the beacon for the fast travel thing for it. Nachtholm. A lot of road signs about that place. I'll do this one time so that I can show you guys what the spirit forges are about. Shurikens.
One must be wary in dealing with the spirit forges. The wraiths and shades that inhabit them offer items beyond mortal dreams in exchange for a sampling of your blood. The wraithsmiths forge their items with forfeit souls.
I don't know what that means in any other way than it's something poetic to say.
Shed your blood for me, and these artifacts will be yours. So, you come to the smooth port for help in Empire. Trade your secrets for another day home.
And it's a good thing it makes sure you really want to do it, because you can do it twice if you're absolutely filled to the brim with blood in your head, health bar. I can't be sure if I was completely full, because I think one of the wolves might have injured me just a tiny bit, and you can kill yourself giving too much blood. If you're completely filled to the brim, you can do it twice, and then you're already like you have like just a few moments left to live because you're so close to the brink of death. But if you cast the Sanctuary spell, you can just return home to the home crypt, and you're immediately given a tiny bit of blood, and there's also easy sources of blood close by. So when it's time to do the kind of rinse and repeat stuff, I don't know why I changed forms. That's basically what it's for, and already like I'm feeling the brunt of this, having so little blood. But as long as you have the Heart of Darkness items, which are basically health potions, as long as you own any of those, yeah, now I have 20 of these, and 99 is the max. I'll show you how they work. As long as you have a Heart of Darkness, you automatically use one of them when you would normally die. Let's see some chunks of flesh get torn off by a shuriken. There you go. Oh, you dare! That's what I'm talking about, but I need blood pretty desperately. Ah, thank you. Thank you. Throughout the game you get a few different weapons, and I have a couple of favorites. Thankfully, one of my two favorites is something you get. Well, shit! You get pretty early. It's the first different weapon you get, which is a spiked mace. And the way that weapon works is that you basically knock your enemies out. You stun them for a little while. You do like a double. You strike them, and then he kind of twirls it to hit the backs of your enemies' heads. And when you do that, they go into this kind of Mortal Kombat finish him kind of, animation, and you're free to drink blood from them. It's the quickest way to render your targets basically into living health potions. And that's a very utility kind of thing. But if you're fighting creatures, yes, in this dungeon I'll get the lightning bolt. It's basically the same thing as the shurikens, not exactly, but it's something where the shurikens are items, so you have a number of them, and the lightning bolt, you have infinite amount of it, as long as you have enough magic points, because it eats at your magic points. And also, the shurikens are homing, the lightning bolt is a straight line, and while the shurikens make chunks, like meatball-sized chunks, fly off of your bones, the lightning does the Mortal Kombat kind of thing where it like tears your limbs off, and those limbs go like twirling into the air like jugglers' pins, It's you can imagine describing this game to your parents or the parents of your friend, like, no, there's nothing to worry about, like, there's this cool spell that does this and that. It's the same thing as with Mortal Kombat and stuff. There it is.
The energy bolt employs magical force in its rawest form. A messy spell, but a potent one nonetheless.
It's awesome to have games like this that are like gory fantasy stuff, but you're not gonna get the like 13-year-old mass audience. You're not gonna get the audience of parents who buy games for their kids for Christmas and stuff like that. So, business sense, I completely understand not having a lot of games like this in the market that make it big. But I'm just real happy that the ones that we do have. There are some kind of fiends. Kind of orange fiends. They keep shooting those kind of homing projectiles. Thankfully, their range is not great, but they pretty well keep me from engaging them in melee completely. Of course, in a dungeon where it's designed to teach me to use the lightning bolt. Or energy bolt, or whatever it is. Of course, they would populate the dungeon with enemies I can't face in melee. But yeah, I can also use the energy bolt to press buttons remotely, like that. I'm a rude brute, don't you know? Nothing like a kind sir. Alright, let's see what combinations. I'm usually very bad at things like this. See, I'm already out of magic points. That means I'm gonna have to let it. There you go. Well, see, this is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the sequels, because the sequels are pretty much puzzle platformers. I would much rather watch all the cutscenes, all the dialogue scenes, all the plot-related scenes from the Soul Reaver games than actually play them, because first of all, they're of that generation of like the third-person 3D platforming where you're constantly struggling with the camera angles, and you're constantly struggling with like trying to get to the edge of a platform or to get to a spot where you can like climb up a platform. I mean, it's not like tearing your hair out of your head kind of frustrating, when it comes to that game or those games. But it's like, I love platformer games, but I love the sort of platformer games that are more about like reflexes and reaction speed and things like that. Your average Super Marios and Crash Bandicoots and Raymans and all those kinds of games. But with the puzzle platformers, it's much more like playing Tomb Raider or something like that, where it's like you enter a room, it's full of villains, you kill all the villains, and then you have to solve the room by moving blocks around. Like there's a platform in the edge, and you have a block on the other edge. How do you transport that block into that other part of the room, And I just, first of all, my mind doesn't really work well with puzzles or riddles. I love Dungeons and Dragons, but I can't stand puzzles. Oh shit. Oh, damn, now I need some blood. Oh, well, at points like these, and you see, it took 2 shurikens to kill the fiend that took like 3 energy bolts. So yeah, the shurikens are good, but I don't want to waste them all, especially since you can't can't feed on your enemies after using it. So they're just Jesus. Thank you. But yeah, it's like Dungeons and Dragons has gone through so many different kind of forms throughout the years. I'm really a big fan of the kind of form it's in these days, or has been since 5th edition. I'm a big fan of 5th edition, and I like online. It garners a lot of hate. Anything that gets too popular or too mainstream is gonna garner hate, regardless, of its quality. But I also completely understand a lot of people who don't like 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons because it's a completely different. It's still Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a completely different game in the sense that the original or the earlier games were much more about like survival. They were a lot about like managing your gear for survival purposes. Like it really mattered back in the day if you had a 10-foot pole, or if you had how many torches you had, how much lamp oil you had, rope, if you had a little hand mirror. Those were all very important things, and you might like spell your own doom if you didn't have them. And characters were very squishy because it was a survival thing. Like imagine being a D&D character in like an alien movie or like a horror movie or something where you're constantly scared for your life because it doesn't take much to kill you. You're just a regular Joe Blow, especially in the early levels of the game and stuff. And all sorts of things, stuff like that. Attaining power, like certain kind of character classes had a lot of prerequisites. You had to be good enough to earn the power to be of a certain class or something like that. There are all sorts of things like that.
The blood of ages flows so sweet. Come, drink from us.
Yes. These kind of sanctuaries exist here and there, where you can drink blood from it.
Your strength has increased, for our blood enhances.
Yes. That means that now I can push around boulders that I couldn't push around before. I was always pushing brown boulders, and there were gray boulders as well, but I couldn't push them before this. Now I can push those. So if I return back to the start of the game, there are now places I can go to that I couldn't before. But of course, now that I have that power, there are now bigger boulders around, so that the mechanic of restricting me from certain areas because of my lacking in superhuman strength hasn't gone away.
The village of Nakton was typical of Nosgoth peasantry. Yet amidst the farmers and smithies of the quiet country life prowled brigands and cut-purses.
Yeah, sounds like your typical medieval German town. But yeah, like I was saying about D&D, the earlier editions were about like horror and survival and things like that. And the 5th edition, the games of today, the D&D of today, is the Tawny Tavern. Ye Tawny Tavern. Yeah, town. Towny. Ye Towny. Wow, okay. There's an old-time town here in good old Frankfurt, Germany. I don't know, Nachtholm. There's Nachtholm here. Kill the women and children. The men are coming at me with like meat cleavers and scythes, but the women are coming at me with just one big 5 fingers, say to the face, slap. Yeah, I don't think I'll be returning to this place. So, and this guy is just like, oh, I don't care. I want to remain neutral. I don't feel strongly against in this way or that. Tell my wife I said hello. Well, there's stuff to take. Some more shurikens. Completely fearless. Like, Kane is constantly talking shit about the state of Nosgoth, but I mean, you know, these people don't even have shotguns, and a werewolf appears in their bar, and they're like, I'll defend it with my life, even if I'm armed with just my 5 fingers of doom. Lion's Head Pub. A lot of bars. People just living off of beer and bratwurst. Good old Nachtholm. I want some Nachtholmian coleslaw and sauerkraut. And of course, shurikens. It's good for all the Nachtholmians to keep shurikens in their barrels just in case. Just in case of home invasion or burglary. You need to bust out those homing shurikens. What's here? Nachtholm Armory. Of course, the blacksmith is gonna come after me. Take his shurikens as well. I wonder if there ever comes a time where, like, the local economy collapses and people start using homing shurikens as their currency of choice. Oh yeah, I kind of wandered off of the point I was talking about earlier. Yeah, about D&D. With 5th edition, I really like it that it's a power fantasy. It's not a King's Tavern. This is like the 4th building we've been to, and it's like 4th building, 3rd pub. I was like, yeah, this could be Germany, this could be England, or whatever. Like, this could be Arthurian as well, you know, because it's like, oi, get in the pub. After a long day of plowing the fields and. Ooh.
Of all the methods I employ, this is perhaps the cruelest. Causing my victim's body to shrink on itself, crushing bones and rupturing organs till the pressure inside bursts the sack of fleshy skin, spraying its contents for all to see.
Yeah, that's another offensive spell, like a straight line spell that shrinks the opponent, and when it shrinks into a ball, the pressure is so immense that it just bursts like a water balloon or a boil or something, and it's just like shoot at somebody and they just gore everywhere. But yeah, I really like when it comes to like fantasy stuff, and when it comes to D&D, I really like the power fantasy of it. I really like either running or playing games where you get to be like an epic badass that does epic badass stuff. Like if I watch movies like, I don't know, the Carl Urban Dread movie or something, that's the first thing that popped into my mind right now. When I watch movies like that, or I watched an Arnold movie or something like that, the first thing that pops to my mind oftentimes is that, oh, I want to do something like that in a role-playing game. Not automatically like, okay, I'm playing a fantasy game, so I want to have a gun that I can like issue verbal commands to change its damage type or something. What I mean is I want to play a badass who can just kill minions willy-nilly and feel all powerful and all that, and only when you face like a boss or something you're getting like mortally injured and it becomes a thing and all that, but you don't have to worry about your characters dying or anything like that. I think there's a lot of miscommunication when it comes to people talking about the different editions, because the earlier editions, like if you just take the earlier editions and you like look at how lethal the game is and how weak the player characters are, and then you just flash forward to 5th edition and look at, oh, the players are way too powerful now. How am I supposed to make them feel like they're in danger all the time, or that there's an element of like desperate survival and terror whenever they encounter an enemy if they feel this powerful? Because when they feel that powerful, even if they face an enemy they can't beat for the life of them, they don't know that yet, and they've become used to being badasses, so they'll most likely just face that monster like any of the weaker monsters before, and then they'll be surprised when they get their ass kicked. But the thing is that it's not about player characters just becoming stronger, it's about the entire tone of the game changing. You know, you can't just take a game where all the mechanics and character building and monster encounter stuff are made for power gaming or power fantasies of creating these badass, undefeatable superhero characters, and then just using those mechanics for something completely different. You can't do traditional survival horror as easily with 5th edition as you could with the earlier editions, but you can't also do the sort of badass superhero stuff with the earlier editions as well as you can with 5th edition. So it's completely different. Like if you have a shelf full of different role-playing games, you'll notice that a lot of them just have very different tones. Like for example, I have a lot of the old World of Darkness games. If you play Vampire, it has a very different tone and kind of feel that it's going for than Werewolf. Werewolf is a lot about power fantasy, about being a super strong badass that can beat just about anybody, and having that sort of getting your kicks out of being a badass, while Vampire is much more about intrigue and subterfuge and politics and things like that. And while you can have those in Werewolf, there's oftentimes not as much need for intrigue when you can just tear anybody apart with your bare hands, you know. And in Vampire, while you can be a very strong vampire, usually you have the political intrigue with fellow vampires who are also strong and who are all like conniving behind each other's backs. That way there's a very clear tonal shift between those two games, even though they're both World of Darkness games. But I think D&D editions have that same sort of, if you had at the same time different editions on the store shelves, you should make your decision based on what sort of tone you're looking for in your games, you know. And I think that's still an actual point to be made, because unlike some other games like war games or something, you don't have to do what's the hottest thing now, what's the newest thing now. You can stay with your old editions, or you can discover those old editions right now. You can play games that were made in the 80s and just fall in love with them. So, you know, it's all good, baby, baby. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that name. Steinschern, something German. schmutzig, ja. Ah, could this place be Stein, schmutzig, Schwanz, ja.
The blood of ages flows so sweet. Come, drink from us.
Yes, please.
The rain will do you no harm, for our blood preserved.
That's kind of a bummer. Even though the rainfall is very minor, it's a bummer that already I haven't faced even the first boss yet, and already the whole rain, acidic rain, is nullified. Let's first go here because there's a, if I remember correctly, there's a fast travel beacon for my platform here. Oh, there's one of those big boulders that I can't push yet. Ah, yes. What's in here? Oh, I remember this place. Well, let's not use magic here. This place is basically just one of those dungeons that is like, here's some stuff, and then you come up to, oh, I can't get past this demon statue because I don't have the spiked mace yet. Once I have the spiked mace, I can come back and I can break that statue down and go a bit further and take goodies, and then I'm gonna run into another barrier that I can get past with later equipment. Oh, yeah, I'm not interested in fighting you, sir. Come now. Wasserbunde. No dialogue about Steiner, Scotto Steiner, Rico Steiner, der Steiner Brüder, der Brüderschaft, ja, schmutzig Brüderschaft. Oh shit. Oh hell. What is this? There's just girls everywhere just slashing and slapping away at me. Well, there's nothing here. Oh, you're blocking my path. Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Something having to do with D&D as well that I've been thinking about lately is that, you know, the internet is filled with a lot of really good practical information for anybody looking to get into dungeon mastering. Big Horn Brothel. They should have just had a picture of a sausage or something. This is fake fantasy Germany after all. But Big Horn Brothel. And just pictures of flowers. Okay. I see. Kind of crass, but but yeah. wonder what German brothels are like. Yeah. I know there's all kinds of true crime and news stories about German perverts who who nail their balls on step stools or what? Help! Fine. I'll let you out of your misery. Or people cannibalizing each other and whatnot. Mine time. But yeah. But yeah, about D&D starting as a dungeon master. I've recently come across a whole bunch of like videos that YouTube just recommends to me based on, you know, being just into D&D and other role-playing games. And while there's a whole bunch of really good advice videos, especially like practical advice for new dungeon masters, especially with Matt Colville, I mean, his videos are so golden. Of course, he has his own style and preferences when it comes to role-playing games, so of course it doesn't apply to everybody, but I think he talks about very general things as well, you know, that work as good inspiration and stuff, apart from just like what actually is happening in the narrative of the game and stuff, you know. Or practical things like, oh, you should take notes, or oh, you should have a DM screen, oh, you should have like a list of NPC names or something, you know.
This lunatic was delighted to see me. Perhaps his madness would reveal a greater truth.
This lunatic was delighted to see me.
The bastards in Station Crow shun me as Nosgoth shuns them. I know what it means to be an outsider. I fear you not. But remember this, there are others who will speak to you, so long as you know how to look.
Yes, he's foreshadowing my next transmutation form, which is to transform into a human, or disguising myself as a human. That way I can walk past guards and civilians and they won't attack me. There are different locations that have like closed doors on like caves and stuff. And a lot of those kind of extra locations are the sort of secrets I haven't ever cracked in this game. The game is filled with like secret locations and bonus material, and sometimes I've gone into forums and looked at all those, and sometimes, you know, getting to them is so difficult and behind such an immense task that I don't even think it's worth it. It's not something that I find fun.
The gypsies, purveyors of distrust and superstition. Most of their babble should be taken with a pinch of salt, since the gypsies often tinker with weary travellers' minds. However, a few gypsies have something interesting to say.
Let's go into the orange tent, because that's where the power is.
There are benefits to travelling beneath the human guise. It's left to my personal lesson that much information can be gleaned. However, the illusion is flimsy, and any act of aggression on my part can break the spell.
Yeah, just like you can't cast spells as a werewolf, you can't fight as a disguised human. But just like the werewolf form, it eats at your... Oh shit, eats at your magic points in that form.
Wasserbunt lay, its glory now stained and faded, a faithful child in the looming shadow of Nutraptor's retreat.
Ja, Wasserbund. Oh, oh shit, he saw me. Need to get away first. No! Stay off my goddamn bridge. But thankfully he's like a genome soldier. His field of vision is like as far as his arms can reach, you know? Now I'm a human. Look, I'm a peasant boy. But yeah, what I meant with the whole D&D point again was that I think there's a lot of I've come across a lot of very negative toned YouTube videos lately having to do with DMs. A lot of really
Where magic extends into very exotic disciplines, such as the manipulation of time. I am able to slow time down so I can move about, quick as a wolf, while all others move as though they were mired in mud.
Mired in mud. Like I said earlier, learned a lot of English from this game. But yeah, what I was saying about D&D, that's one of those spells that I rarely ever use. I just rarely find it coming naturally, you know. But yeah, I think there's a lot of negativity out there having to do with dungeon mastering that makes it harder for newbies to want to try dungeon mastering out.
Nutraptor's keep lay west of Wasserbunt. I would seek to cut the cancer from its heart.
Castle Grayskull. If I could, I would live in a castle that looked like a skull. But yeah, because there's a lot of expectations that sound incredibly entitled on part of players, and I don't mean it like players shouldn't have, you know, opinions. They shouldn't have preferences, tastes, or they shouldn't be able to give constructive criticism when Dungeon Master is like doing something that they really don't like, and, you know, crossing boundaries and whatnot. But I think there's just a lot of these things don't actually appear in actual games, actual like coming together around a table and having fun together. A lot of these negative things don't really reside around actual gaming tables, but they usually just reside online, because a lot of people go online to vent their frustrations with games, and a lot of that frustration is semi-baseless. A lot of that frustration is just, you read a rule and you imagine how it could be abused, and you come up with tall tales of having a friend of a friend who abused the rule in the way that you're fearing someone would, you know. And let's just transform back just so that I can like heal my magic points a little bit. And I also think that there's a lot of people online.
Should this object strike an enemy, rot and decay would instantly eat their flesh and leave only a pool of blood and tissue. For a time after, the toxins are still active and therefore lethal to the touch.
Yeah. Another offensive spell, but this one's downside is that it melts the enemies into like a acidic pool of pus, so that if you walk over their corpse, you're gonna hurt yourself. But it's a very powerful offensive spell. But yeah, while we wait for the magic points to heal, what I mean is that there's a lot of a lot of like online, a lot of people either make posts or videos and whatnot where they're basically motivated by completely different things than an actual dungeon master or a player around the table would be motivated by. What I mean is there are a lot of very cynical people who simply see making YouTube videos as a means to an end, basically like a monetary gain. They want to make videos that are provocative and provide clicks and views, and usually the way to do that is to basically make people angry, or basically confirm people's biases. And the same thing can be for social kind of currency. You don't just have to be motivated by making actual money on YouTube. You could be making you could be doing it for positive reinforcement of people patting you on the back and saying you're a very smart little boy for making these observations, you know. And that might be somebody's motivation to be incredibly negative and provocative and having like really shitty opinions that if somebody who's looking to get into the hobby sees and makes forms opinions based on that stuff because it's what people with authority, or at least apparent authority in the hobby, are saying, and you don't want to. Nobody wants to look like they're stupid or that they're new to something. Even when people are new to a hobby, they want to look and sound like they know what they're talking about and stuff. So people oftentimes copy the mindsets and kind of tossed around things that people react to, like, it is known, you know, railroading bad, it is known, you know, this sort of stuff. And a lot of times people start to repeat these things and kind of formulate ideas in their heads and create like these kinds of perceptions about what it is to dungeon master before they've ever even tried it. And one of the downsides of a lot of that is that people start to create this image that dungeon mastering isn't even worth it unless you're doing it really, really, really well. And even when you're doing it really, really well, a lot of people can still come and prick at it and just come and notice things and say that you're a bad dungeon master for doing this one simple mistake, and so on and so forth. And a lot of that is also informed by people who, like, let's be honest, when people are insecure about like being a dungeon master, going out and playing D&D because they're afraid of being labeled as, you know, childish or nerd or something like that. When people have those kind of insecurities, they oftentimes seek sources that confirm those insecurities, and that can be with just about anything. It doesn't have to be with gaming, and gaming is still a pretty mild subject because it can be with very, very serious real-world problems having to do with maybe staying in the closet if you're gay, or maybe or trans or something, or maybe it could be about like your self-image having to do with your weight or something like that, to where if you're insecure and scared that people will judge you, you will seek sources like almost intuitively that confirm those fears. And when there's another person saying that yeah, you should never do this and that, or yeah, you are a fat fuck, or you know, even if you show your like progress pictures of your weight loss or something like that, and you're like insecure, I don't want to show up at the gym because I'm not shredded already, like, and people are like confirming that yeah, you definitely shouldn't. You should never show yourself outside your house because you look so terrible, you know, you slob and all that. And you can have that kind of thing in gaming as well, where people who don't even really play D&D or other role-playing games. Whoops, I went out without transforming into a human first. Let's go back in. Also with time, your health starts to drop, so we can't just stay here forever. But yeah, a lot of opinions online are made by people who don't even play D&D or other games. They would like to, but they're feeling insecure about it, they're feeling self-conscious about it, they have all sorts of negativity biases about it, and they're spreading their biases and fears in order to hear other people say that, oh yeah, that's 100% right. I never tried it because this and that, or players suck because they do this and that, and then somebody comes in and says, yeah, that's exactly what happened with my players, even though that person might as well be completely making it up just to confirm their biases and their insecure kind of conclusions and stuff. And so it creates this kind of whirlpool of just negativity. And if you're a new dungeon master or somebody who's looking to get into it, and you're looking for resources online, and you come across that stuff, I can easily imagine it being a really big turn off, and really big what's the point? If you're a dungeon master, you're expected to be like a master storyteller, master of the rules, a master of the setting that the game is set in, and all this sort of stuff, when the dungeon master isn't expected really to master anything. And if you're actually playing the game with people, you'll know that immediately. When you're a newbie dungeon master, people around the table want to help you. They don't want you to suck. They want you to be great.
The wind carried screams from the west. I couldn't help but smile. Someone else in this world was suffering more than I.
Kane being an asshole once again. But yeah. People around the table people around the table don't want you to suck. They want you to rock, and they want to help you rock, and they want you to be part of that, the whole experience of role-playing, to be awesome, and that's something where, if you're a new dungeon master and you're feeling self-conscious about, and you're feeling kind of performance anxiety, and you're feeling all this pressure because somebody online convinced you that you're supposed to be like a perfect customer service provider.
The gaping maw of Nutraptor's retreat rained upon Nosgoth all his pain and misery. The disease begged to be cleansed.
If somebody's convinced you online that you should be like a perfect customer service provider, and you're supposed to be like you're supposed to be like great at everything, and if you're not, you're like scum of the earth, that sort of stuff. If it really gets to you, you must remember that that's just online bullshit. It's the same sort of bullshit I feel that you hear people talk about, like these well, I don't know if it actually tracks, but this is just my kind of have you ever heard like people talk about what they would do in like real dangerous situations? Like if there was an active shooter, or if they were in a war or something, I'd totally do this and that, and you're like, sure you would, sure you would, you know. It's the same sort of reaction I feel in me when there's the face of Nobpraptor. With his mouth so shut, his eyes so shut, and his brain turning into some sort of an orb that's barely even attached to his skull and his flesh. But yeah, it's the same sort of where people are, when you see online like videos of like D&D horror stories, how this this player did this and this. It's always, you'll notice certain things. It's like how this radical feminist railroaded a campaign into oblivion. You know, it's like, I'm sure it really happened. I'm sure. If you go to Reddit or something, it's just fan fiction prime. And that's that kind of negativity bias.
The mentalist Nutcrafter was renowned through Nosgoth for his tricks of the mind, telepathy, and telekinesis. Pilgrims travelled from all across the land seeking the comfort of his lies. I sought not his wisdom, but his life.
Yes. Must kill Nutcrafter to uproot the the problem here. But yeah, I just want if anybody's thinking about starting D&D, like either playing or I'm getting concentrating. If anybody's thinking about giving it a try, I just want you to be aware of that. Be aware that there are resources online that actually are looking for are looking to help the next generation of role players, and there are resources that are just looking to confirm their biases and just being negative assholes and stuff. So, you know, and a lot of people also, if they have a preference, if they have taste, like for example, they prefer the old style of D&D of like horror survival to the modern power fantasy superhero type of game, they won't communicate that as a point of taste. They will instead communicate it as a failing on your part, whatever it is, like whatever their taste is. If your taste is the opposite, it's because it's a failing on your part. You're too much of a pussy to play games that are lethal. It's like, why would I want a game that's lethal if what I'm aiming for is a superhero game? And there are also a lot of people who want to frame like if you're not playing a very politically sophisticated or savvy kind of game, that it's because you're a dummy. You're not sophisticated enough to play a game that has deep-rooted politics attached to it, or like riddles and things like that. We humans are really flawed when it comes to these sorts of biases and denial feels. Because it's like we can't just admit that we like stuff because we like it, or we like stuff because it's what we grew up on, or something. Oh shit! Instead, it has to be because of it's not taste. It's an indicator of the quality of our character, you know, or something. Like, I'm smart because I play these games instead of those games, or likewise, you're dumb if you play these games. And that's something that's kind of sad.
You dare intrude upon my sanctuary? Can I not mourn in peace? Leave and let my solitude be complete.
I will not let your solitude be complete. I will kill you. Ran out of coffee. I think I'm gonna go and have a refill of my coffee and also take a little bathroom break. But worry not, I'm not gonna leave you hanging. I'm gonna leave you with cartoons. There you go. But yeah, basically what I'm aiming at here with all this is that some alkalines. They have books that you open and flames shoot out. Yeah, well, what I'm basically aiming at or aiming for with these comments about D&D is that if you're looking to start D&D, or if you're looking to give dungeon mastering a try, I would really just recommend just relax about it. I mean, it's one of those things that I don't mean it in a kind of a talking down to way, in kind of patronizing way, because it can sound like that, like, oh, you're not confident enough, just be confident, that's the key, or anything like that. It's I don't mean it that way, but I just mean that just like with almost anything, confidence is something that comes with experience, and you won't ever get those experiences if you're too scared of basically sucking at first. And I don't mean sucking like you're gonna be like just terrible, that people would like wish they were rather dead than playing in one of your games, but I mean your mind can easily tell you that if you're like a new dungeon master and people around the table are like fiddling with their phones or yawning or anything of that sort, you know. It's not because you suck. Usually the reason is that people are just, I know I'm the type of person who needs to fiddle something with his hands whenever I concentrate on stuff. I either need to be like, drawing. Oh, there was just, there was silence. I was expecting there to be like audio of but yeah, it's like I, for example, usually need to be fiddling something with my hands when I concentrate, whether it's drawing. Some people are knitting and other things like that, and it's nothing to do with like being bored around the table when you're running games. It's about just, you know.
I came upon one of Nutcrafter's serving girls, catatonic with fear, choking out half words through bloody, broken teeth. Although tempted by hunger, I stayed my hand, allowing her to tell her story. She spoke of her lord Nutcrafter, driven to insanity by the brutal slaying of his beloved Ariel. She spoke of his self-mutilation, sewing his eyes and lips shut to deny the outside world. Fueled by despair and hopelessness, he turned his magic on the circle, infecting their minds with his madness. Nutcrafter cared for nothing now, save his pathetic self-pity. Scars such as hers would never heal. Death would only be a mercy.
See, I was immediately feeling kind of guilty over just immediately draining the blood from her when this kind of dialogue started. I was like, oh, maybe it would have been more fitting if she was just still hanging in the handcuffs and stuff. But of course, I know Cain. He feels no mercy or remorse for anybody. It's just me killing her and drinking her blood. That's actually a favor. Actually, I'm doing it as a courtesy. Oh, fuck. Those piper guys, those kind of pied pipers with the flute, they summon zombies, and they're kind of annoying because their whole thing is they come into such close contact with you that your melee strikes aren't actually hitting them, so you have to take distance away from them in order to actually hit them. So but yeah, new dungeon masters, just relax. Just if you're looking to start dungeon mastering, there must be something that inspires you about it. Whether it's like the creativity of it, getting to like build stories with your players, come up with NPCs, and create a setting for your game, even if it's a setting that's very deeply rooted, like a Faerun kind of thing in D&D, or any kind of like Song of Ice and Fire or something, you're still gonna get to create that local setting, whether it's a village or your noble house or something like that. Those kind of creative juices are, you know, very inspirational when it comes to like what makes you want to dungeon master, at least for me. And different things like that, whether it's about just you know, running enemies in combat and things like that. Whatever gives you your like kicks about it, just remember those things and don't let go of those things, because a lot of those intuitive things about like what's cool, like you can't really explain away or find like an objective kind of take on what is cool and what is not cool. There are all kinds of art and fashion critics out there who will tell you that, oh, this is cool because such and such, this is beautiful because such and such, this is creative because such and such. But everybody has an innate sense of what they find cool and neat and interesting. So don't lose that when it comes to dungeon mastering, because that's something you can always like hone in on if you're feeling kind of down about it, and that's something that you should like concentrate on. You don't have to like worry about like being like, if you're a writer, there's a term that they use in creative writing called "kill your darlings," which means basically that if you have a story and you have a scene that you really want to be there, you know, if it derails the story, if it doesn't serve any purpose, if it's there just to be cool, it's usually the best idea to just cut it out, just kill your darlings, and maybe save that for a future project. I think with dungeon mastering, you shouldn't be that much. You're not really a writer writing a book, because you're all collaboratively creating the story. So you should just give yourself the break of just put in stuff you find cool, you know, and that way you can keep yourself motivated and inspired. And oh shit.
The cretin squandered life and left it seeping on the floor. Such waste was a travesty. Perhaps Nutraptor needed to be taught a lesson as to the value of blood.
See, that's Cain right there. It's not like you come across a torture chamber. It's not the abhorrence of torturing people to death. It's that he's wasting blood. So, as a player, you can get to feel like a good guy in a sense, because you're a bad guy who's killing worse bad guys. You're kind of like the Punisher or something. But Cain wants it to be. Cain wants it to be made clear that it's not out of altruism or any sense of like moral superiority. Superiority for sure, but not any kind of virtue. Let's let the magic rise a little bit. But yeah, what I'm basically after is that in order to keep yourself motivated about dungeon mastering, you shouldn't prioritize your players' fun, especially based on of something somebody said online, above your own enjoyment, because dungeon mastering takes so much work in the sense of like doing homework between sessions, that it has to be worth it to do all that extra work. You can't just burden yourself and just prioritize other people's fun above your own, because that's a recipe for burnout, and you'll resent dungeon mastering from then on. And you should of course listen to your players, not players generally, because everybody's different. There's as many preferences and tastes and styles as there are gaming groups, because every single human being has different life experiences that have informed their biases and their tastes. and thereby everybody's tastes around the table are very different. Some people want combat constantly, some people want tactics and strategy, some people want political intrigue and very challenging stuff for the intellect. Some people want a lot of mini games and gamified things. Some people want really like role play, theater type stuff with like character dialogue being spoken. Some people want comedy, some people want horror, some people want this and that and the other. And you will only be able to really gauge that with your players and their preferences by communicating with them, not just some sort of ethereal game or some ethereal player, what players want, online. You should never really pay too much attention to when someone says that players generally want X. You can always say that players want to get their rocks off and want their kicks, but what those kicks are very different depending on the person. I keep seeing videos online where people tell me that the pleasure of dungeon mastering is doing X, or the pleasure of playing is doing X, and I'm constantly just shaking my head saying that's not it for me at all. And I know that for my players, and when I'm a player for my dungeon masters, it's not for them either. So that's for you as a starting dungeon master to discover and learn through playing with your group. It's a good thing to play with different groups throughout the years so that you get to experience diversity in those kind of tastes and preferences and styles. But we're still doing this for fun, not to be some sort of a world-renowned a kind of example of a perfect dungeon master who's learned it all through different experiences with different groups or anything like that. It's the most important thing is that you and your group are having fun. That's the number one priority, not that you're fulfilling somebody's list online of not doing any game master sins or crimes or anything like that to do with the hobby or anything like that. Just have fun, relax, and have fun. Let's see, okay. It's one of these rooms. 4 corners, each a mini dungeon to open the main door for the boss battle. Rising spikes. Okay. Need to start leaping around over the spikes.
Yes.
But yeah, just like with anything really, whether you're learning to play an instrument, doing a sport, or anything like that, everybody would tell you automatically that it's madness to think that you can only try those things or participate in those things if you're great at it from the get-go. That's madness. Nobody can pick up a guitar or a keyboard or whatnot and just, jam away like somebody who's like a seasoned artist who's been doing it since they were kids, dungeon mastering is no different.
When conjured, the energy bank permits me access to mass amounts of magical energy for a brief period of time. However, when the moment passes, I will be drained of all magic, unable to cast even the simplest of spells.
Yeah, this is basically something that is for boss battles only, that item, to basically like boost your magic points to maximum for a moment and then be all drained, because during the boss battle you can always use the item again and again and again, and just not have to worry about it all that much. That's cool. But for regular levels, it's not a good idea to use it because it's a terrible punishment to be basically drained. Drained afterwards. But yeah, the thing I was going for with the point earlier is that everybody should expect that the dungeon master is an amateur when they're starting out, and thereby, you know, it's a good idea to start playing with people who are already kind of seasoned, because they have a lot more understanding and sympathy of this, and they can help you out. Because if you're a dungeon master and you don't feel confident in knowing all the rules, if there's a player in the around the table who does know the rules quite well, you know, you shouldn't feel any kind of trepidation about asking them, you know, like, how did this rule work again? And if they can remember it offhand or something, that's a valuable resource. People just don't like doing it because it, in their mind, can confirm that, oh, this just confirms that I don't know what I'm doing as the dungeon master. I'm supposed to master these rules, you know. And the same thing goes for, like, if you like in-character dialogue and all that. If you have a player who loves doing it, it's easier to do it when you have a player who will instigate it. It might be like you might feel kind of stage fright when you're dungeon mastering and players come across an NPC who's, oh, okay, I can do magical light, bitch. Not gonna scare me. Like if somebody jump starts, and if you're feeling kind of stage fright over doing NPC voices or something like that, if you have a player who really can like instigate it, that first kind of barrier, that kind of dam gets broken easily if a player starts it. If you're feeling kind of like your palms are sweaty and you're like, oh, they're gonna go and talk to the guard. I was thinking the guard would sound maybe like this and that, but I don't know. And then a player comes up and says that, look, well, my character says, greetings, gentlemen. Can I ask directions about such and such? Where's the smithy located, please? Something like that. I don't know. That might be the the kind of introduction, or like the kind of getting kind of like invitation to play and be silly and not worry about being embarrassing or something. That's something they teach you in theater as well. That's I've learned a lot of valuable lessons about role-playing from theater. Because there it's paramount that you learn not to worry about looking foolish and not to worry about being embarrassed. Because if you're anxious about being embarrassing, there's not anything you can do to get around that when you're on stage, because being on stage and pretending to be a character is there's very few ways in which that wouldn't be embarrassing in the sense of people's standards of finding things embarrassing, unless everybody is in that mind frame where we're accepting, we're being playful, we're being kind of child-minded here, and it's completely fine. It's fun. It's fun to have fun, even if you're an adult. And for some people, that's a hard pill to swallow. A lot of people, especially I feel like a generation before mine had a lot of I always hear from these gray-haired folks like these very snide remarks about like painting Warhammer miniatures, about like, oh, you're still playing with toys. It's like, yeah, I guess I am, and it's fucking fun. Are you having fun? I'm having fun. I don't know about you, but fun is fun. Fun is great. Fun is awesome. And theater is kind of like that. That was one of the skull's eyes. And a lot of times in role-playing, you need that same sort of mindset that, hey, we're all being childish here, but being childish or childlike in this kind of playful way is not a negative thing. Being childish when you're throwing a temper tantrum, or being childish when you're being stubborn, or being childish when you're being unreasonable, those are negative things. But being childish, meaning that you're being playful, that's nothing but a positive.
From the depths of the retreat's eye sockets, I viewed Nosgoth in a different fashion. The glass seemed to warp the image and taint the colour, as if Nosgoth needed assistance in making its corruption apparent.
Yeah. Kane sharing his distaste for his homeland. But yeah, another thing from the theater, by the way, is also the fact that I was always kind of anxious about people criticizing me, like the audience members, rolling their eyes at me or something, you know. And in the theater, you very quickly learn that nobody gets off their ass, drives to the other side of the city or to the middle of nowhere, and pays for a ticket expecting not to like what they're paying for, or hoping not to like it, or something like that. People are coming there looking to enjoy their time and be playful and kind of go into that frame of mind, that kind of theater magic, you know, kind of thing. And that's something with tabletop RPGs as well. If you have players show up to your game and they're like I said earlier, fiddling with stuff because they're, you know, it's not because they're bored or not liking your game. If they're yawning, it might be because they've had a hard week at work or school, or they haven't slept well. It's not because of your game. If somebody's character is not present in the scene, they might be chatting, hopefully quietly, with another player. They're not doing it to slight you or to inadvertently express to you that, man, this is some boring ass shit. They're just humans. People have been taught with different kinds of rules of engagement. Like I know a lot of people who who, when you're around the dinner table, there's like 8 conversations going on at the same time. Everybody's speaking on top of each other. And I know people who are like, the moment somebody else opens their mouth, they immediately shut down and are like, oh, I guess nobody was listening to me, you know. And you could have that around the table. You could have all sorts of like, you know, people might be snacking on foods and whatnot, and nobody's there to slight you. If they actually thought that your games suck and are not worth their time, they would not show up. They would not show up. If they do, while they think that, they're being immature and dumb, and hopefully they'll grow out of it, you know. So, you know, don't worry about that. The thing is that, just like with learning an instrument, learning a sport or something, you're expected to make a lot of mistakes. And when you make those mistakes, it's perfectly okay to make them, and you have people around the table who are there as a safety net to help you, just like a tutor would help you when you're learning an instrument, or when you're doing a sport that's a team sport. The team, there is no I in team, is there to help you out, and they hope for you to thrive and become better and all that. So it's the same thing with role playing. So a lot of the people online who say negative things, when you challenge them on those negative things, they usually become very defensive and like, oh, I didn't mean anything by it, because they're just venting. Usually people are just insecure, they're frustrated, and they're venting, and they're not expecting anybody to challenge them. They're either expecting people to just confirm what they're saying, like, yeah, I agree, or not say anything. If you challenge them, they usually just crumble. I'm not trying to tell you to go and challenge people's opinions, but usually if somebody's being very judgmental, it's usually flimsy. Alright, here's a save spot, which means the boss is right around the corner. I'm gonna save the game after the boss and continue from there next time.
So, Malik, have you come to fail the circle once more? Leave, Paladin. I do not need your protection. Come, Cain. Come, share my pain.
It's a good thing Numpraptor is mad. It's a mad thing to send Malik away, because Malik is basically like undefeatable wraith. You know, a perfect bodyguard for Numpraptor against me. I couldn't defeat Malik. Like, later on in the game, I can't defeat him at all. Thankfully, I don't have to face him. Just one lunatic in a chair. But yeah. Make those dungeon mastering mistakes and make them with your group. It'll build trust in your group,
So,
because
this was the mentalist Nutcracker, this broken, pathetic little man. Yet crippled as he was, he would not yield without battle. Very well, old fool. If it is death you seek, I will not deny you.
no. Oof. Make those mistakes together, and it'll bring your group closer, because you feel like you're developing together and you're helping each other out. You have each other's backs, so to say. Oh no! Oh, thank God. And also, oh no. You know, if you watch, like, I love Hong Kong Kung Fu movies, and in those movies, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Ooh. His head came clean off.
Perhaps the head of her beloved will convince Ariel that I have accomplished my task.
Let's see. Whoops, wrong screen. Wrong screen. See, select and start, open different menus. I love this menu screen, by the way, where you can see here are my items, and here are my weapons and armor, and here are my like innate spells that use magic. Let's see what he says about.
Nutraptor's head.
Whoops.
Nutraptor. Alas, poor Nutraptor. I knew him well. Well, not really.
That's Kane for you. But yeah, with the Hong Kong Kung Fu movies, everybody knows the dubbing is bad. Everybody knows that especially today with Blu-ray HD quality, you can see the wires on the actors pulling them around whenever they're doing their great stunts and like leaping through the air and stuff. You can see like a lot of the actors are like kung fu experts, but not even kung fu experts want to take a dive onto a concrete floor. So when they're taking a break from throwing punches and it's time to twirl through the air and land on your head on the concrete, they all of a sudden transform into Chinese stuntmen with wigs on, you know. And also, you know, there's moments where a villain would be giving their monologue, and they're all neat and clean and everything, and the moment it breaks out into a fight, by the time they throw their first punch, they're already drenched in sweat, because you're really looking at take 5 of the action scene, and they don't have the budget to maintain continuity by having like dry clothes for the actors or something. And if you were to ask somebody who was like being snide and being like cynical and being like a know-it-all dickhead online, they would describe all those things as a negative. But if you go to a fan of Hong Kong Kung Fu movies, or a fan of movies in a lot of different perspectives, they would describe those things as completely endearing. Like, one of the main things to love about those movies, besides the cool action and all that stuff, is those kinds of flaws. They're very endearing and lovable, and they're like, you point your finger at the screen and are like, hey! And, you know, that sort of, hey! is usually a good kind of attitude to have about those movies. And when it comes to gaming, you know, a lot of mistakes that game masters make, especially new game masters, you know, sometimes you can make mistakes that are basically about, you know, not having introspection to basically better yourself as a dungeon master. If you have flaws and you make mistakes that are mostly just about you being stubborn, or you being very you know, toxic or whatnot, that's a different thing. But when you're making mistakes that are just kind of like, you know, lighthearted, you misremember a rule, you calculated the points wrong, you described something kind of poorly, and sometimes, you know, like, even great writers, like there's a running joke about George R.R. Martin accidentally changing eye colors with characters, or the sex of a horse or something like that.
And those are all things we chuckle at. Nobody's immersion and their enjoyment is breaking because of that. It's just something to laugh at later on, and something very human, and something very relatable, and something we all do, and something you need to get, as if you are a new dungeon master, okay with yourself doing, because just like if you start basketball as you're not gonna be like Michael Jordan when you start. You might fantasize about being Michael Jordan, and the worst thing you could do to yourself is that you wouldn't go to basketball practice, because it's only worth doing if you can look like Michael Jordan in the eyes of your fellow players or something.
The mace is amongst my most useful of weapons, for it merely stuns my victims, allowing me ample time to feed.
Ah, yes. I love the mace. It's so bad. No, I love the mace because of
Spiked mace. The mace is amongst my most useful of weapons, for it merely stuns.
Yeah, it's the same. But what does he say about these?
Iron armor. As it was born from hellfire, forged by the necromancer's magic, my armor resists fire and provides me with strong defense.
Yes.
Forged by the Cerioli, the legendary weapon masters of Nosgoth, this blade will serve me well in life and beyond.
The assassins gave their a precious sword, that they struck through Cain, the nobleman. Maybe the necromancer. Whoops! I mean, maybe whoever put them to the task gave them the precious sword so that it could be a fitting weapon for Cain, the vampire, to use. But yeah, now that I have the mace, it's like. Boom! But yeah, the mace doesn't do the four swings, it does this. That kind of twirl to the back of the head. Alright. Next. Oh yeah, I'm automatically transporting you to. I love this game.
I placed Nuthraptor's head before the Pillar of the Mind, and watched on as it dissolved into the stone. The pillar accepted its offering. Thus it was restored. Nuthraptor was but the Genesis. Forever tainted by his madness, the circle was beyond redemption. For them, absolution lay only in death. In me, they would find their deliverance. But first I had to defeat their shepherd. Malek, defender of the Nine, lay in a keep to the far north, past Vassabund. It was time for me to test the wrath of the Pillar of Conflict.
Death in the circle breathes life to the pillars. For every pillar there is a token. Only with these shall they be restored. But to reach a warrior, you must first breach his ward. Find Malek and destroy him. Only then will the circle fall.
Yeah. So Malek is the next, basically, person of interest now that Nothraptor is dead. Now I'm gonna transport back into the start of the game, my crypt. That'll heal me up. and there's a save spot right close by, so that's where I'm gonna save. Oh, I didn't get any blood. Okay. And I'm gonna leave the game there and continue from then on. Malik's Bastion is a rough place. I really don't like it. There are a couple of places in this game that I really just don't like, because Malik's Bastion really it really punishes you, and you really have to be careful, because he has these I'm just gonna override my earlier save from like forever ago, but yeah, he has these kind of alchemist spots and places where he creates these animated armors, and they just keep spawning, so you have to clear the room and do what you need to do and get out of there, because if you just stay to fight the armors, they're just going to keep respawning, and they're pretty rough. So I really dislike that place, and I usually wind up spending some of my hearts of darkness in that place, and I hate that I have to do that, because they're very precious. But I might do the whole shuriken farming thing before I go there, and I think I'm gonna start with that next time I play this game. So yeah, maybe like a week from now or something, I'll continue and talk about whatever. This time, dungeon mastering was really on my mind, so hopefully you weren't just interested in the game and felt like my talking about dungeon mastering was like a distraction. But yeah, if you are not into D&D or you haven't ever tried it, you should maybe give it a shot, or any tabletop RPG really. D&D is just it's a synonym for role playing oftentimes, and it just kind of rolls off the tongue talking about dungeon masters and Dungeons and Dragons when you really mean the entire hobby, where you can play anything having to do with like science fiction, fantasy, like film noir style detective work, horror, anything like that. Something very off the wall even, so if you're looking to give that stuff a try, I really recommend it. And if you're already into it, hope the stuff that I said resonated somehow. But yeah, thanks for joining me, and we'll see each other soonish. Let's put you to sleep.